Okay, here we go. Let me see. Just going to copy I'm going to share the stream link here real quick. Streaming for the next hour or so. Working on the contacts page, PR, designs. Let's see. All right, let's hop in. All right, so here I'm working on a page called the contacts page, as you may have seen from the title here. And I'm kind of in the middle of it. I put together a draft document and then a pull request, laid out some designs, some copy. And now, later, after some other conversations, I knew it wasn't right. There's still a lot missing. There's a lot not figured out. So now I'm just going to work through some of these things. And the thing with contacts is that over the last year and a half or so, we've had a ton of conversations about them. I think everybody kind of agrees that contacts are pretty important. So instead of, every time you send Bitcoin, you type in some address, you really just want to, just like messaging, emails, you tap somebody's face or name, type in your message, and then you send it off. And dealing with these abstract, complicated strings in Bitcoin is really just, it's tough. People dealt with phone numbers. Luckily, now nobody has to remember them anymore. Usually, email address is a little bit easier to remember if somebody's picked a good one. Physical addresses, also not the easiest strings to remember. And from social media, we're pretty spoiled when somebody says, find me on Twitter. I'm just ABCD, Peter F, or whatever it is. But with Bitcoin, we don't have anything like that, but we have other things. And that brings us to some unique challenges here. I'm going to try to go through this in a structured way, because it also helps me organize my thinking. So this is a screenshot of the page of that PR that is currently on GitHub. And let me see. The preview link, you can find that in the description below. There's a PR link, and then there's a preview link, so you can look at this one. So it talks about contacts, the reason why this exists. Then it goes over the basics of a contacts screen. So that's kind of the center of it. You have a screen where it says this screen represents a person. There can be an image, a name. If it's a company, it can be a company logo. Then we have several options. I can add a node, I can modify it, I can delete it, stuff like that. With a Bitcoin application, I can also have send. I may potentially have also a request. And then I have activity. So I've made 10 payments with this person. I can access them. If a feature has things like scheduled payments, like send them 1,000 sats every week for rent or whatever it is, that could show up in here, but that would be a unique wallet feature. I don't know of any wallet that has this. And then the difficult part is really these addresses here, but we'll get to that. Then after this, it goes into more detail, like where does the name come from? Images, easy, kind of have to upload it manually. Names, a little bit more complicated. Some of the different payment requests, invoices, and it could include a name, but names are always optional. There can be spoofed, like if there's a certain name on Twitter, their user ID or username, only one person can have it, right? But with these invoices, I can pretend to be you or Amazon or someone else. So those names that come in, they just can be suggestions, and then the user just have to say, yes, this is actually Priya Lee here. And I want to take this name. Then identifiers, we'll get there. And then it goes into some user flows, like I open my app, I want to send something to Priya. I type an amount, I tap her name, I pay a spray, and it's figured out how to, what the right address is to send this to and how to send it. Then let's say I create a payment request. I want to request money from a certain person. Then I can just pass, create a payment request, and then I can either share it with somebody directly, or I can also say, okay, I want to already assign this to a contact, at which point no payment has been made. It might never be made, but there's now in my wallet, there's this payment request exists with a person assigned, and I do hope that this then gets completed, which is a little bit tricky because with Lightning, it might actually expire. And then, well, what do? Do we just never show this again to the person, or what do you do? And then, the wallet payment history, which is called the activity screen. There's a whole page for it in the guide also. It just looks way better when you have persons, companies assigned to all of them. So it's not just like some random string, or just say, yesterday you paid 1,000 sats to someone, right? Nobody knows. It's just a much better experience here. And then, just some of these organizational features. Now, my main problem that I have here is, and I will switch over to the sending Bitcoin page designs here, which is also in the guide under payments sending, is where do contacts come from? Where do they show up in the system? And which is quite a few different places. And what makes a contact? Because let's say I email with someone, or I call somebody on their phone number, I can be very sure that this phone number or this email I will be able to reach them. It's like a fairly fixed destination. Somebody's email might change every few years, maybe. Same with the phone number, and they do it intentionally. Now with Bitcoin, it's a bit different. So a lot of these payment request formats are meant to be just used once. There are some other ones that could be reused, but they all have their unique properties. And that's just kind of a mess. And that's why all of this is not so simple. But I really want to start here from the very top here, going back to the contacts page. So, and the very top is basically, I want to manually add a contact. I might be here. This is my contact screen. Maybe I don't have any yet. Just going to hide these. And well, at the beginning, maybe I don't even need this. I don't even need that. Let's just might be something like this here. Add your first contact. Right, got it. Let's give this a little bit smaller. Center it. And then maybe we'll add button here. Cool. And it doesn't have to be this big. Can be maybe. Could even be small. Let's see. Add contact. Cool. But let's make it. Yeah, that's primary action. We can just leave it to that. So I'm going to give this some spacing. 10, nice number. Okay, cool. So I'm here now. I'm going to add my first contact. So, well, let's see what happens next here. I would imagine need a keyboard. Just throw this over here. Actually, I want this to be a fixed position. Okay, now I have a keyboard. Probably just gonna lock this here. Probably want let's see. Add this for a little bit. Where is this? Black 25. Okay, cool. And then I do want input field. And maybe another title here. Cool. Let's center all of this stuff here. Give it some fill. Spacing. Bring it in here. The name, and then this might be pre-selected. Cool. Then I'm entering my name. Okay, cool. Let's just leave it at this for now. So I add my first contact, I enter my name. Then let's see. Now I have a contact that has a name. Let's just say it's Priya here. And my avatar here just says PL, the initials, and it has nothing, right? Because we just don't have any information yet here. So, okay, we don't have tags. We have nothing. Cool. So, all right, so how do we fix this? So the most important thing somebody may want is, so I cannot send or receive yet, right? So I want to add some information to this one. So what do we call that? So the most important thing for a address book in a payments app is how can I send a payment to them? So I want to add maybe some address. Name is not final. We'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, let's just do this fairly quickly. And then let's see, I'll just take another copy of this one. Now we have Priya here. And PL. I don't want this one right now. And then for some reason, let's just say I added a Lightning address. Okay, cool. So so technically it's now, I can use this, but there's something missing here now. Now that we have a Lightning address, I can do this. Now I can send to this person. Or I could send I can also do a request. Now the thing is, I could technically also do a request from the person that has no name. Then I would just have to no address. I would just have to then create an invoice and share it by social media, for example, or by email, something. So the request button technically already makes sense here, but sending is not possible. Okay. And there are, let's see. Sending is possible here if I add, hold on, I already have this written down somewhere. Sending is possible if I add a okay. So technically, these are the things that I could add here. So let's put in something in the middle here. Another one of these. So now I am enter address. And here we probably want some type of validation. This is a valid address. You can make repeated payments too. We'll just leave it at that for now. Get there later. So if we want to be detailed, we could add something like enter a Lightning node ID, a bolt 12 offer code, a bolt 12 address, in ln URL-pay request, a Lightning address, or an extended public key. Obviously, nobody wants to see this, but this is technically all the stuff that could be entered here, which are address payment formats that I could make repeated payments to. I could technically also put in an unused on-chain address. But okay, let's just say I enter a Lightning address. Yeah. Well, where did it go? Let's say I put in an on-chain address. This is a single-use on-chain address. You can make one payment to. Do I have an example somewhere here? Maybe. Let's go to our sending Bitcoin page. Okay, let's just grab this one here for the sake of it. Okay. So, right, that's a difference here between on-chain. I mean, an on-chain address can receive multiple payments, but you're not supposed to because of privacy reasons. It allows people who know the address to stitch activity together. Okay, so but let's just, for the sake of it, just think an address was added that I can send to multiple times through different techniques. Okay, now we have a contact here. Pretty cool. So that was the manual flow. Now, there are other ways that this whole thing can happen. So let's say I go to a website or Twitter or something, somebody has a Lightning address or some bolt 12 offer or one of these repeatable things. And I copy it to my clipboard. I go to my app. The app detects, okay, cool, you have something, one of these types of addresses too. What do you want to do? You can either send a payment right now, where you enter the amount, and you pay. Or you can send a request, which all kinds of difficulties. I actually might not get into some of those. Or you can just say, I just want to save this as a contact for the future. So in here, I can add a contact. So this is very different than, let's say I have just a second, we'll get there now actually. So let's say the clipboard is one thing. This could also happen when I scan a QR code or I click a link. It's just that some string gets passed into the application and it tries to figure out what to do with it. And in this case, this type of address or identifier or payment request format comes in that I can do multiple things with. I can save them, I can send, I can request, right? Maybe something else. Now, let's say a different type of information enters the app, either through scanning, link click, clipboard. But this is actually an invoice. It says, okay, you should make a payment to this thing, person, whatever. Or here's a withdrawal, like ln URL pay allows you to do withdrawals too. Like, hey, here, this invoice will give you 1,000 sats or something. So here a few things can happen. So again, we can have here different recipients, which could be the node ID, it could be ln URL pay code, could be bolt 12 offer. It could actually be multiple things at this point, or it could be just a single use address. So now we have to differentiate between the point that if I assign a contact to this payment that I'm about to make, If this is a single-use invoice, then the payment gets assigned with the contact. Just the payment. That does not mean, so let's just say we have our empty contact Priya here, and it is a single-use invoice. And what we'll have after this is, copy this, steal stuff again here from over here. What we have afterwards is essentially one transaction 2 minutes ago. Okay. So because I just made an invoice, but there's no information in the invoice that I can make a payment to in the future. Okay. So, and this is by, let's say I press add contact here, then I get, maybe I get an overlay like this. So I press add contact, get an overlay like this. I press Priya, which at this point does not have an address assigned yet, and these don't exist. Let's just clean this up. So I press Priya, and then, you know, Priya is assigned here. Let's just call her Priya Lee, and move this. Okay. So I have this invoice here, press add contact, I pick a contact, Priya is assigned. Okay. And this should probably be a Lightning invoice, which looks something crazy. Right. So now I have in my contact, like I pay this, and my contact is now one transaction properly. However, let's say I get an invoice with, I don't know, some node ID or some LNURL thing or a Bolt 12 offer, just something, some identifier that lets me make multiple payments. Then this looks different. We also have our single transaction. But now we also have this here. Okay. Now I can also send because okay, cool. So now I can also send because not only was this one transaction saved to this person, but also this reusable payment identifier. And I think this doesn't seem right here. Nobody knows what the Lightning address is. Let's just say, just make it look like this for now. Okay, and then if I press send now, it will start a new payment to this specific identifier. Okay. All right. So there has to be some logic in here, in all of this, where we parse these incoming payment requests in any shape that they can enter the app, any technique. And then we have to give users the appropriate options. So if this is an on-chain payment, then, you know, same thing here. I can assign it to a contact, but I cannot make future payments to it because on-chain addresses should only be used once. Now, in here, we could, it depends on how forceful this application wants to be with the user, because you could also say, well, you know, if somebody really wants to, if they know what they're doing, let them make another payment to this on-chain address. That is an option. And maybe we just say, okay, hey, this is not good for privacy. Sure you want to do this? And then we let people figure this out. Somebody already asked here if I'm still streaming. Cool. Okay, let's see. Okay, all right. So now we have worked through a few things here, and this can be fleshed out in a ton more detail for all of these different things. So let's see. Now, something that I am struggling with is exactly this point here. So let's say, I'm going to grab one of these screens here, copy that. I'm going to get rid of scheduled payments because that's not a real feature anywhere yet. Maybe we don't want to highlight on-chain addresses too much. Tags, let's just keep tags just on the payment level. And then we also have this option here. We don't need a note. Nobody needs notes. Okay. So now we have this. And it can also be that let me see. Okay, cool. So we might have, hey, Johns.
Hey there, Mr. Christoph.
Cool. Hey, guest here coming in, Johns. I'm just right in the middle. When did I start this?
28 minutes ago.
7 minutes ago. Yes, live on YouTube now. So I've been trying to. Have you looked at all at this activity contacts page? PR.
I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I'm super excited to see what's in there.
Yeah, so I've been just trying to organize my thoughts basically because I, like I explained at the beginning of the stream, I put together this Google Doc, just took all the notes, and then I gathered screens and I put together this PR, and it just doesn't feel right. Some stuff should be removed, and it's kind of hard to follow. And I was actually just getting to. I'll just give you a speed run here, and to catch you up, and maybe you can help me work because I was just trying to get to one of these most complicated points here. So so in this page here, I started like, oh, let's look at this really complete contact page screen for a single person, right? That seems like if you think about contacts, the heart of it is a screen that represents a person, and there's like a list of payments you've made with them, and right, some notes, maybe a profile image. But I actually want to twist this around here because I feel like if that different approach will make it easier to understand the design decisions. That makes sense so far?
And what's the different approach then,
So
than looking at the contact details?
So the different approach is starting by, where do babies come from? Where do people in the system come from? And starting with the most simple thing you can do, which is like at the beginning, your contact screen is empty. Nothing there, right? It says add your first contact. Then you enter a name. Name can be anything. In this case, I entered the name, Priya. And at this point, it's a fairly empty screen, but I can already request. Like if I press request here, it will create an invoice. And then I can share that over social media or email or whatever I want, right? Somebody can scan the QR code that will be on my phone, but I cannot send yet because there's no information. Like traditionally, if we, in our contacts, we add somebody, we have their email address, we have their phone number, we have their physical address, some identifier that we know, we will be able to reach them this way for the next weeks, months, years, and it's not just going to change. But with Bitcoin, it's a little bit different because we have so many of these single-use identifiers floating around. And we'll get more to that. So, but let's just say, I have added Priya here, and I want to add one of these addresses. I'll just call it address. That's like a whole thing in itself. And then I enter an address. So technically, all the stuff that I could add here is I could enter a Lightning node ID, a Bolt 12 offer code, a Bolt 12 address, LN URL pay request, maybe also a withdraw request, Lightning address, or an extended public key. Potentially, I could also add an on-chain address that has not been used before that would then allow me in the future to make one payment with that person. All right, this is already where it gets complicated. And that kind of explains some of the complexities later. So let's say I enter an address and the wallet detects like this is a Lightning address. At this point, it could be a Lightning address or a Bolt 12 address. Can't tell. Could be one of the two, but it looks valid, right? Or if I enter an on-chain address, it could say, well, you can make one payment with this one time. It's an on-chain address. And then, my contact's kind of complete and the send button appears. So far, so good, right?
Yeah, go on.
So the other way that contacts can enter the system is I paste something in my clipboard and go to the app. I scan a QR code with some type of string, or I click a link that opens the app and passes some type of text into the app. And the app tries to make sense of it. And if it's not an invoice, but it's like a Lightning address or an XPub or something else, it has to ask me like, what do you want to do with this? And I can say I want to send to this, I want to request, if that's possible, or I want to add this as a contact or to a new contact. And then later on I'll make a payment, right? If you send me, you could set up whatever Lightning address or send me a node ID, I just want to add it, I don't want to do anything with it. So in this case, we have these different options. And the app, again, it has to understand what it's dealing with in order to show the appropriate options. Now, if an invoice comes in, it can figure out, it can say like, hey, you are requested to make a payment. And it could have an amount, could have no amount. It could expire in a minute, could expire in an hour. It could be LN URL pay request, could be Bolt 12. It could be a bunch of stuff, right? But basically, I need to react. I'm expecting here that I'm going to make a payment. If there's like a node ID or something, I could. So there are three scenarios here. One is it's an invoice and it's a single-use thing, and in that case, I can make a payment. Like I can say, well, this is a payment for Priya. So I click Add Contact, I click Priya, and then okay, I'm making a payment. And then in my contact page, there's like one transaction. But we don't have, I can still not send to her because I've not received some reusable payment request, format, address, whatever. However, if it's like an LN URL pay thing, if it's Bolt 12 offer, there are other formats, which if I add it to a contact, then the application can also store that reusable identifier. And then my contact will have a send button show up because now I can continue to make payments or maybe even request payments.
And then you have to make a choice as well if you have multiple of these identifiers.
Yeah, correct. So that's what I'm getting to next. Like if I have multiple of them, so it could be. Let me grab this from the sending page here. So this is what I was just getting to. It could be, I could have. I mean, it's the same thing in. It's the same thing in the regular contact book. You have sometimes, like on my iPhone, I want to contact somebody. I can say, hey, well, do you want to do a video call? Do you want a FaceTime audio or a regular phone call? Or which, if there are 3 email addresses, I have to pick which one I want to use. So it's not tricky. I think the tricky part for me here is what the hell we call this thing. So if we look at this here, these are all the things. Actually, I've already have this somewhere here.
Yeah. So how I group them?
I know how you. But let me just finish here real quick. Okay? So these are all the things. There's one thing called a node ID. One's an offer. One's an address. There's a request, another address, and a public key. Like nobody will be able to make sense of that. So, here, this was like the first thing I put together, and this is in my PR, and I'm just not happy with it at all. So, and this doesn't really make such sense either, to just show this stuff. Right? I mean, we could just try to hide labels. That's not really good either. So here's my question for you. Can we just call this accounts? So we in the guide, in our conversation, we've used like single use payment request formats. And you've also brought up invoice generators, which is the case with some of these, where it's not the endpoint itself, but it allows you to request an invoice. But that just doesn't work for regular. I mean, that works for our technical design conversation, but it doesn't work for
the payment
use.
request generator, definitely. It's not like a user-facing one. The payment request is one, right? The contact is one. All right. So, and then like the only name I like for these kind of things, where you calling it, you think you're calling it accounts. Accounts is a little tricky because, at some point when we start to do multi like account path, like iterating the account path of private keys, then we're gonna run into some trouble. And I hope that gets into the guide at some point, right? So then you can have a business account and stuff like that. So I think accounts might reach some collisions at some point with other stuff in the UI.
No, that's the trick, right? And that's where I'm kind of stumped on right now, because I feel like all of this stuff, they're just dead ends, right? And because they're like we have three things that are addresses.
Yeah, I call them identifiers.
Yeah, I've used identifier in some of the page too. And then Bosch was like saying like, oh, identifier, that's too much lingo. And I agree too. It's none of it is good. None of it is right yet. So how do you, I mean, if let's say you and I talk to each other, you want to give me we want to exchange identifiers. Like, I'm not going to say, hey, give me your Bitcoin identifier, or how can I send you, or what's your Bitcoin account?
Yeah, Bitcoin account. Yeah.
Because the way, let's say you think about, you download your wallet and well, this goes in another conversation. There's the hardware wallet, there's a software wallet, and then there's the HD wallet concept, right? So wallet is overloaded already. Accounts is already overloaded because HD wallets have all of these sub accounts that barely any application really uses. Maybe if you're using a CoinJoins and Join Market or so. And then, typically accounts are like on some website, third-party accounts, username, password, email password. All of this stuff is just really tough. But I just want to, I was struggling with this the last few days or so. I was like, I'm about to declare bankruptcy on all of these words here and just say, screw it. We're just going to call it accounts or wallets. Like, hey, what's your wallet? How can I send to your wallet? Right.
Yeah, the only one, yeah, like I would still be stuck on identifier because then you're gonna get into some other arguments with developers, and then you're like, well, this is not really an account, and then like I feel account has just too much collisions. Wallet is one that I typically try to stay away from. Like I just try to not calling any, like I'm making a Bitcoin application. I'm not making a Bitcoin wallet or anything. And yeah, I mean, it does sound a bit technical, but that's because it's used currently a lot like in technical places, but it's a way to identify you, so I don't know. What's your contact details? Send me your Bitcoin details. Yeah, you uh,
What else do we have in like in these contact systems?
Website sometimes.
Yeah, I looked at vCard specs earlier too.
Yeah.
Email, ringtone, text tone, URL, address, birthday, dates, related name, social profile, add instant message. Interesting. In iPhone it says add instant message, and then I can pick which service. That's weird. Add instant message. Then I can add Messenger, WhatsApp, Slack. GitHub is even under add instant message. That's some weird wording. Yeah, but I feel like if we so here's another part to this that I was looking at. So let's say I have my somewhat empty contact. Like I think this kind of makes sense. Add a field, right? I'm going to add a field to this contact.
Yep.
And then again, I enter something, and it just kind of figures out like this should not be here. I just enter something, and then it figures out, oh yeah, this is an address. You can add this one. So that way, so maybe we don't even need a handle here at all, right? But how do we
Let's call it details. It's details. Contact details.
I mean, I'm also up for using address.
Address? Oh, you're a brave man.
Yeah, but I mean, like you cannot be technically accurate here. There's no resolving this. It's not possible.
Yeah.
On-chain address is layer 1, single use, technically should be called invoice ID, can be used multiple times. Lightning address is like on the Lightning network on top of LN URL, some spec. Bolt 12 is pretty much imitating this without this, and it can be sent to repeatedly. And you cannot fit extended public key, makes no sense to anyone. It's kind of, you shouldn't even share this with anyone, right? It's good for watch wallets, but you really shouldn't share this with anyone. So it's kind of questionable whether it should be included.
Is it really discouraged? Expos?
Well, I mean, if you trust somebody very closely, then I guess it's fine.
Even a hardened one?
Well, so there's the security aspect. If I have one private key for one address, I can have access to everything, right?
That's if
but the other thing is the privacy issue.
That's if it's not hardened, though.
Yeah, and then the privacy issue where I can generate addresses and see every transaction you make with that wallet.
Yeah. Well, that's when it comes into like have the application properly segment these things and store the data. Store the metadata so they're properly segmented, right? So
But it does allow you to make online payments, like non-interactive payments. So I think there can be use cases for this one.
Yeah.
Maybe not in a mainstream Lightning wallet, but yeah. But yeah, this other stuff, they cannot be brought under one roof in a way where everybody's happy.
What about the BTC Pay Server link?
What's with that?
That could also be a way to retrieve invoices.
So hold on, is that a landing page with?
No, like the wallet could like integrate with the API, for instance, to be able to fetch invoices.
Yeah, I'm not even getting into anything custom, like custom API integrations. Yeah, that's a whole different beast. This is just trying to
like it's a type of generator as well, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, this is fun stuff. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I just left it as identifier, because not to get into this discussion. I mean, the hive mind will come to an agreement.
Think so?
Yeah, I think eventually. I mean, maybe they don't, but at least it's you don't lose sleep on it.
I want to resolve this.
Mm.
You know,
I
something like that. I could see that work out, for example.
Addresses, and I mean, yeah, it's a Lightning address. It's a it's a node ID. It could be an address, and node ID is an address. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think
yeah, it's an email address, right? Email address. There you go.
So this, all of these could be, you could consider group as addresses. Basically things that allow me more the mental model. I can make multiple payments with this piece of information. And I don't care what it is. Like how, I don't care how it works. It just, as a user, it allows me to make repeat payments to this person here. And maybe activity should be further up here even. And then when I press send, the question is then, yeah, I haven't even thought about that. Like, wow.
The default one? Well, just like a phone, right? You, I guess, yeah. One thing that you have to also check out is when you're at the send, the point of sending, like the send screen, and it defaults to like whether the default addresses, then you have to then also provide an option for them to switch the destination. Yeah. I gotta hop off for a little bit, but I'll try to make it back. Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for your input. See you later. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Something I was just wondering about here too is there could be overlap here. This lightning address can point to a URL pay request, can point to a Lightning node ID. So if I have these three different things here, they might actually be all the same endpoint. So the application could technically figure out if it's the same thing, right? So let's say I have this Lightning node onion address here added, and then I want to add a Lightning address. It could say, okay, you already have this, or maybe it just adds it and it doesn't even tell you. And then when you want to send, it goes straight to the node ID potentially, which does not then consider the fact that the user might want to keep the Lightning address and then just decided to point it to a different node or LURL pay thing. Okay. So this is a tricky one. John's just said the hive mind will figure it out. But I think it helps if we give if some groundwork is being done to present good options to the hive mind, and then we have a structured kind of systematic organization, or basically just systematically move things forward. Okay, but let's see. I'm just going to organize this a little bit differently here. Let's take a look at our original page. So we have the different user flows, choosing your contacts, your contact names and images, all the hardcore stuff with identifiers, choosing contacts in Bitcoin 2, assigning a contact, browsing wallet history, organizing contacts. All right. Where do we take this from here? So ideally, I would like to be able to have final updated screens at the end of this stream here. But we'll see if we can make that happen. Okay, let's start again from the top. So I'll move this away. So I think this is kind of important to start the page with this one, because it does, it starts with nothing. Like it doesn't start with a cluttered filled screen where you don't even know how it got there. I think that's a lot of times one of the things with UX design, that once you've done a lot of research and prototypes and screens and mock-ups and things, it's extremely helpful to go back to the very first step and start with the most minimal thing you can think of, like the very first moment somebody sees an application, opens an application, gets in touch with a concept, see what, and if they know nothing, and you have some type of persona or scenario in mind, like what they see, what information it tells them, what they might know, what they might not know, and then how it step by step guides them into the experience. And I think this is similar when we create pages like this one, where this is already, it's like overloading you with a ton of stuff. Like here, it's the basics, but here's all this stuff and all these user flows. Maybe better to just start with something like this. Okay, so yeah, like I said, this should not be here. So I'm just gonna create this over here. Just gonna keep a copy. Put this down here. Okay. So it's called address here. I'm adding an address. And potentially we might need to have something like here. What are addresses? Or what addresses are supported? At this point, the user knows very little. It's small. Let's give this body 18 here. And then somehow we show this information. I add something recognizable, and there's no save button. Clearly, that should be added also. Otherwise, I can't save anything. Zero here. Here. Save. Usually should be. Height neutral 4D. Okay. And this is our primary one. Let's. Okay. Cool. All right. Cancel save. Cool. Let's just put this over here also real quick. It's kind of weird. The height really shouldn't change the way it does here. It should not just get bigger and smaller like that, but whatever. Okay, so 2 scenarios here. Let's do something. Let's split this up. Okay. Some weird behavior here. Just going to connect these real quick. Oh, weird. How does it do this? Okay, sure. Nope. Sure, fine. That's kind of weird here. That is some weird behavior here. These nice. It doesn't want to. Not playing along. Okay, screw it. Let's not deal with these arrows here. But let's just say we have to just imagine arrows here. We have two scenarios. It splits up here. Okay, here we have this one. And actually, this is cool. Okay. So now we are at two different points. Here I can make a one, I can use this address one time to make a payment, and it will allow me to send. Okay. Now, not so. Let's say, let's just for the sake of it, think through this request flow. When I request something, I get taken to this will not be perfect because I did not do the request Bitcoin page, so I might not have the best mockups here. So this is the recipient here. So underneath recipient, it could say, it could indicate which address it will use. This will be blank here. I should say enter amount. Yeah. Send. I got a note, tags, likely fee. This will, as described in the sending Bitcoin page, this will be on chain or something else based on whatever address is picked. Okay. And let's see, reset texts. That does not seem right here. Okay. Okay. And if I click here, I could then send another person, but otherwise, I think I just need to enter the amount here and press send. And then after, if I do this with a single use on-chain address, then this address would no longer show up here under addresses. It would be just one transaction. Okay. Let's see. So clipboard, the add contact screen here. I would imagine name, enter contact. Okay. And one of the questions here is, so let's say I add this add okay, cool. Here we are. So let's say enter contact name, and then afterwards, I think afterwards I get taken to a screen like this, or actually, this would be more like this. All right. So because I did decide that I do not want to send a request. I just want to add the contact. That's my thing. So I press add contact. I get taken to the screen here. Shows shows this information here. And then, I can still send a request here if I want to. So that's kind of this flow here. And then if I go to send, I enter the amount. I do think it should take me to this type of invoice screen, where I then have to finalize my invoice. Let me see if I have I think this one here is actually what we want to see then. So, okay, let's split this up a little bit further. Okay. So here I picked add contact. Good to go. Here, add an amount, press pay, ready to send. In this case, there's no person assigned, so it would be more left content. We don't need an accessory. Address. Okay. So percent here and an amount, then I review the whole thing again. It's this amount, this address, this will be the fee, no tax. If it's on-chain, it'll look a little bit different. If it has to do a channel, to open a channel, do this, other things. There are also all kinds of detailed variations of this screen. Okay, and then, okay, that's it. The question then is, can I still add this person? So it goes, it does this thing and then this thing. So I press send, sending, wait a second, and then let's send. So at this point, we can show the receipt. I can be done with this. Should I still be able to tap contacts here and assign this to someone? Probably. I would imagine so, that this is should still be an option here. So I can press this, the contact screen comes up, I can pick an existing one or I create a new one. And then this also becomes this payment becomes associated with a person then in my wallet history. Okay, cool. And I think the rest really builds on all of these things previously discussed. It's just about laying out all of these different states. So I'm request to make a payment. If this recipient is already familiar, it will just show, okay, this is Priya Lee. If not, then I have my typical options here, add it to a contact, either now or when the payment is being processed. And that'll be that. So this is kind of the minimal Lightning invoice. if I get a LN URL pay request, it can also include an array of images and text objects that could be pulled in here. That is then a question up to the wallet whether they want to store all of that information. So next time I see it in my history, it should also say, thanks for your donation, show that image, name of this vendor, whatever. And of course, this is not Jane Richardson here. It's Priya Lee. It's our persona here. Okay. You request to make a payment. Okay. Stores into contact. Then it adds up. Then this is kind of what I not want to see. So I'm going to delete this one. So the contact evolves. And then we have this richer one here where I can quickly access my transactions and I can see my addresses. If I want to add another address, I can press this up here and I will get these options. What is not included here is deleting an address. So let's say I want to delete this one. Always sometimes tempting to do like a swipe right to delete type of thing. I personally find this super counterintuitive. And I don't think it's something we can rely on. So ideally, you may want to have an edit option in here. So I could imagine here, contact. And something that could happen here could be then, here could be an cross X. This could be a delete. And the other thing we may want in here could be, and this could be simply implied. Let's just make this up real quick, 30 by 30. Icon slash drag. What we want here, let's just leave that in for a second. That's what they typically look like. Blurry here, the way this is looking. Weird. All right. But anyways, let's add some accessories here. We want icons, and we want our icons to be drag. Okay, so I can drag them up and down. I can delete them if I want to, maybe approve. So the dragging up and down could be for the benefit of whichever one's at the top. That's the one that will be used by default. Deleting is obvious. The alternative, something else you could think of, would be to add a title to them. So you could, weird. Let's see, we want our descriptions here. You could imagine something like nations. Well, this is just totally made up. My node or something. So in this case, the user then can give addresses a purpose. So I personally, on my own, I might have in my own contacts, I might have my kind of business address that probably doesn't make a ton of sense, but I might have two Lightning wallets or addresses or that I want to share with different people at different times. One of them is for donations, where maybe it's like a separate business that I need to tax and do accounting differently or so. So that would be also an option here, where we allow users, at the moment when they add an address, to also add a more human readable label on top. And this is something that could add here. So I'm just enter address. There could be another field here. Probably a smaller one. This is not going to be very good here. Address label. And can be selected. So it would be like that. All right. So in this case, I get an address and I can label it. So then later on, when it shows up in my contact here, then that's, I don't see stuff like that, but I see, okay, this is my donations address, or this is my savings address, or this person's whatever address. And if this is not an entry for a person, but a business or a service, that might also be helpful in the end. Okay. Other things. Let's move on. So here's one where the way I get to this screen here is via the home screen, and we have one right here. Let's see, I have not checked into any questions, probably no questions. Okay, chat is empty. Cool. So we have home screen here. I press nothing. I press request. Lots of wallets allow you to do this. They just send you straight to some QR code. And in this case, it would create. So this here is incorrect. This is probably not even needed here. So let's say I type in 100 sats. It would just say it's 100 sats. Not pretty, but whatever. This is now my payment request. And this flow allows me to get very quickly to the point of allowing somebody to pay. I can press share button and I would send either the invoice or QR code, whatever it is, via AirDrop, messaging, LinkedIn, whatever you want to use, to the person that I want to pay me very quick. And then everything secondary is hidden. And that's totally fine. If somebody pays me, then I get an entry in my activity screen and I can add details. There's also this details and address setting down here. I really need to work on cleaning up these pages here. Okay, yeah, I don't have that. I have it somewhere. C-flow. Now here's an example. Just need to look in the right place. Okay, it looks just a little bit different, but basically detailed address settings, I pull this up. It shows me which address it's being sent to, the amount, I can add description, address types, for power users, notify when confirmed, also helpful. And then, this add contact option, it could be added in here, or it could be added here to this extended menu. Or let's say I get this confirmation that so-and-so, this invoice was paid. Now, when I get an invoice paid, like, what does it say? Like somebody, it's nicer when it says Priya Lee paid you 1,000 sats than when it says you were paid 1,000 sats. You have to mentally figure out what is this for? Why was this done? If it happens right away, then that's no problem. Like you create this QR code, somebody pays you right away, no problem. If you're, let's say, a merchant that gets constant payments by lots of people, and you're just busy dealing with your customers, then it's not so helpful. You're going to have 10 people buy the same coffee. You have no idea what's from whom, if that's even important. If you're a merchant, no clue. But it might be nice here to be able to add this as this very, very easily. And then at that point, anything that enters your activity history, this thing here will have a person assigned, because nobody wants to go afterwards through this whole list of stuff, of these unassigned empty payments, and figure out, like, what did I pay for 10 days ago? Who was this? So it could be a good thing to add here, but need to refine this, because I think these screens also get busy very quickly. And as I mentioned before, like, nothing in the contacts can really help me with this screen, I think, because so this is really just assigning a payment to a contact, but there's nothing in the payment that can be saved to the contact. Let's put it that way. I guess I'm wondering, if a payment gets made, then I can identify which node it came from, and then if that node could be stored to that particular contact. I actually don't know that one. Feels like that should be a thing. When this payment is completed, can the sender node be added as a contact? And what this would allow me to do is then, if the wallet supports key send, I would be able to send to this wallet in the future. I think there are a bunch of technical details that I'm not super solid on, but I think that could happen. And then, we have this, and this is, I'll go back to something I worked on earlier this week. So we have, I'll grab this one. So by default, looks like this. This kind of, like I said, this is what you want to avoid, that user has just this, endless rows of this. You don't want that. Who wants to look at that? Doesn't make sense. You want something like this. Maybe some of these, maybe it doesn't, maybe you don't want to design this in a way where it's a little bit more calm. Let's say, so maybe this is what you want, and you don't want to have descriptions and tags here in these lists, but you want it to be like that. But this is what you can make sense of. Okay, yesterday you were at Yum Yum Foods and you spent 75 euros. That makes sense. That makes sense. But how do we get from there? Ideally, nothing ever ends in this list like that, because either at the beginning when the payment initiated, or when the payment is complete, or you're waiting for it to complete, you've assigned a contact. Or maybe the app helps you piece things together. If you have a rich list of contacts that you make a lot of payments with, the app can just say, okay, this is from that node, this is from that code, whatever. So you never get in this situation here. That's ideal. Okay, but let's say we are in this, or let's say we have one entry in here. And I want to detail this out more. So I tap on it. And then we get to here we get to this screen. Yep, this is a completely blank something else. Pin address. Actually, this should be more like something. 3 sets or 2. Okay, so I have a payment here, and it just shows me this is how much I received from this address, from this node ID, from this identifier. This is the amount. Probably doesn't need to be repeated here. Can hide this one. And when. That could also be in here. You received 0. Received on 16/2021. Could be something like that, and you don't need this. Let's just leave it in for now. And then I have details, and I can expand. I can see confirmations or pre-image, those stuff. But that's technical stuff. So we have from an address here. So what I'm thinking is that there are 2 ways. I think the natural thing is just say, hey, here's an address. Assign this address to a contact. And in that case, you would do something like that. Let's just okay, so from address, here's the address, and on the right-hand side, you would want an icon, the contact icon. Okay, it's kind of huge. So I tap it, I see my list of contacts, I pick one, and then it shows here, okay, this is Priya from Priya Lee. Avatar, okay. And here it can show this address. Now, that doesn't work if it's a single use. I guess that could work. The question here is then, let me see, let me pull something else up here. All right, here's what I'm looking for. So we have technical details, Lightning invoice, and payment pre-image, potentially a few other things. So if there's no identifier here, if there's no address that I can continue to send stuff to, then I cannot have a from address that I can replace then with the face of a person. So let's say there is, yeah, it's almost like, Hold on, you don't even know that yet. Oh, it's so big. Let's just ditch this one. So I still have my from address. So the address is separate of the contact assignment. And I think that's kind of what I'm looking for. So I'm not saying this Lightning invoice or this address is identical to this contact. I'm saying here's a Lightning invoice, here's an address, here's a LAN URL pay code, and I'm assigning this payment to this contact. And it could be that it's just a payment assigned, like we've seen before. It's a payment assigned to a contact, but the contact I still cannot send to that contact because there's no permanent static identifier, or it could be that now there is one. That's kind of the separation. And I think this is something where I will have to work through in detail after this flow here. Okay. Let's see. Let's look at my trash pile here, my workspace of random things. New contact, that one I can ditch. It's kind of outdated. I think this one I have. This would be helpful to have a mock-up of a business or service account. Okay. Yeah, I think this is something here that still needs work. And maybe it is as simple as doing something like this. Icon, info icon. Okay, anyways, so where I can just potentially just pull up, actually, that's the wrong screen. Like that, where when I pull this up, using a nice screen that says, well, here's the deal with addresses. Here's what you can do. Also think maybe something like this would be better here. Probably this one here because it's the same that's used in this button. It probably should be consistent. Something like that. So I pull this up and it tells me if I just can't make sense of this, and most people, maybe they can't. Maybe this should be really small. Maybe not sure. I think this is something to be resolved still. Maybe it's enough. Maybe we need something like this here. Where am I? That's it. It could be that we need what's an address? I care about this one right now. Say edit. There's several different address types in Bitcoin. Some of them can only receive Bitcoin once, multiple times. Don't worry, just enter the information you have, and we will let you know how it works. Then maybe use address types. So this would be the option for first time I enter an address. What's this? What is this address thing? It tells me that, well, there are a bunch of different ones, and they have different properties, but we'll let you know. It's fine. This could either be automatically or show automatically, or it could be accessed this, or it could be accessed both, or this could be if you support address types or something. And then if there's automatic parsing like that, I would actually change this screen to get away from this overlay because it's awkward. Yeah, maybe I feel like something like that is needed then. So whenever some address enters the system for future use, you're made aware of it, what it means, what it can do, so that later on you don't encounter weird strings that you don't know how to feel about, that that you feel like you have to be worried about, like, oh, am I sending stuff to a scammer here? Let's see. All right, so let's take a look. Let's come back to the very beginning here. So at the beginning, I said I created this first draft of this page, and there's a pull request for it, and you can look at it. It's linked in the description below. And I was not totally happy with it because there were a lot of details to refine. And I wanted to start with a different flow. So my next steps would then be to, here at the top, just gonna lock this here. Here, add manually adding a contact from an empty contacts screen, which is aka adding the first contact wallet. And this is kind of what I want to see here first. And then after this, the reader knows this guides the user through this, adding first contact, adding a name, seeing this, adding an address with a label potentially, and then they have a contact in the system. Then the next step could be contacts with multiple addresses and payments. So the rich contact here, which is this one. And then it says, after, so this is the first contact. After there was some activity, it looks like this and like this. And that's when you need to have the following considerations in terms of features, design options, all of this stuff. And I think because we have to go through this step by step, I feel like that will already be good amount of content here. It might be able to just have these linear flows, or it might be better to have these single screens with descriptions next to them. We'll just have to figure that one out. So now the reader knows how a contact, like the essentials of a contact, and addresses and a first. And then we go, there's no payment yet, but now we know what this contact thing is like. Then the next thing takes us to payments. So I would start by this one here also. This one is probably most similar to what just came before, which is, well, I didn't manually enter it. The application just kind of picked it up from some input. And then, okay, cool, now I have a contact. And then we go through this send flow. I'm ready to send. And this is the address. And then I have the option to add it to a contact, or it already recognizes a contact if it's a contact in my system. So that would come next. But there are two different variations. So this is adding contact via clipboard QR code. And this was making payment via quick click and then adding to contact. And that leads us to a slight variation of this one, which is the adding contact, responding to an invoice, adding a contact to it. It takes us through this whole flow where I have an empty invoice. I say, hey, I want to assign this to a person before I send it. I go there, press pre-LE, she's added. I send it, cool. And then in this contact here, a transaction shows up. If so there are two flows here. One is there's no reusable identifier. The other one is there is a reusable identifier. If there is one, that identifier, that address also gets saved. And it should look like this here. Okay, this contact manipulation is a separate flow. I think that could come last. Responding to invoice, then we have the payment and assigning a contact to it. Then the next user flow would be browsing payment history, bring up details for a payment and assigning a contact. difference is that, this is an old payment from 5 weeks ago. This is a payment, where is it? This is a payment I'm just making right now. Very similar, slight difference. Okay. And then we have editing contacts, single contact lists, and single contacts. Okay. And that's the same as organizing contacts down here with more detail. Browsing payment wallet history and assigning contacts. It's the same as this one. Okay, let me just. So this is the same one, but we have more detail now. This is this one. We have more detail now. Creating payment request, assigning a contact to it, choosing a contact. I don't think I've covered this one here yet, did I? Yeah, this. That one still need to do this. And this here, there is a payment request formats page that similarly covers some of this. So I think something that could work is to extract this, put it in the payment request formats page, and then really focus this page on the UX first. It's differently here. This technical stuff here, be nice to get rid of it somehow. Contact names and images. I guess that should, to repeat again from earlier, some invoice formats can provide names. I think Bitcoin, BIP, whatever, URL scheme has a label field. And then URL, I think, has a vendor name. Might be mixing that up. But some invoice types can send in a name, and that should not be just taken as 100% accurate. It can be spoofed. Anybody can just type in whatever they want, but it could be suggested to the user that when you and probably when you assign a contact, enter name, maybe it could be pre-filled here. So if name Peter comes in, it would say Peter here, you just press OK, or you change it. Maybe that could be the solution to that. And then this here, probably don't need this one anymore. This, say move name, image, identifiers, addresses, options. I mean, it's all kind of obvious. Organize social species like tags and payments. Just going to remove those. I think that's up to the individual wallet. That's a unique wallet feature if somebody wants to implement that. I think in the guide we have tags for payments, which are more important. So you can later on see, okay, show me all, summarize my payments with, see how much I paid on groceries or for business or whatever. But I don't think that's actually needed for contacts. You could aggregate them automatically somehow, but I'm not sure there's really a lot of value there. I would ditch that one. And the other stuff's probably obvious. Let's just call this remove. Yes. Fine. And then we have a page that starts with a simple introduction. It goes over the very basic step, the minimal viable contact. Then if a contact becomes more complex, and that's like, then adding a contact via clipboard. So we stay with adding contacts. And then that transitions us to the payments part, invoices. And then that takes us to sending Bitcoin to someone, the payment requests. So now we know how to add a contact, contacts into the system, how you add it to an incoming invoice when you make a payment, then if you initiate your own payments, then after a while you have browsing history, how you assign payments to old school payments. So at that point, you're already familiar with all the parts, you know, invoices, you know, payments, you know, that assignment linkage. It's just this extra interaction, and then editing contacts. And let's see how simple this will be in the end here. Okay, I think that's good for now. There's some progress here. Progress being made. I think that's what matters here. Let's see. So I'm gonna wrap this up now. It's been an hour 50. Anybody watch this? Thanks for watching. I hope it was interesting. And my next step then probably next week will be to add all of this, to update this PR for the contacts page. And then, you know, you're also welcome to give more feedback on that one, because peer review is open design, open collaboration, peer review is key to all of this stuff. So thanks for tuning in.